Assalamu alaikum. Now we continue with the marks for verbs. First we start reading with this text. متن الأجرومية. متن الأجرومية. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الكلام هو اللفظ المركب المفيد بالوضع، وأقسامه ثلاثة: اسم وفعل وحرف جاء لمعنى. فالاسم يعرف بالخفض والتنوين ودخول الألف واللام، وحروف الخفض وهي من وإلى وعن وعلى وفي ورب والباء والكاف واللام. وحروف القسم وهي الواو والباء والتاء. والفعل يعرف بقد والسين وسوف. So last time we reached this point. والفعل, the verb, is known بقد, by. This ba here means by in this context. قد, this word usually comes before a past tense or present tense verb. So that's one of the marks for the verb, either present or past. والسين وسوف, we covered those in the last video. This last one here is only, we said the sin سوف only attached to present tense. قد only attaches to past and present. Sin وسوف attach only to present and specify it for the future. It's a present tense that will happen in the future. And this here last one is only attaches to past tense. This تاء التأنيث الساكنة. تاء, it's this shape here. Sakina means it has a small circle. That means there is no movement on it. It's تاء التأنيث. Sakina, this word sakina, means no movement. Sakin is someone who's dwelling. If you say someone lives in this area, يسكن, he lives in this area, sakin, which means settled. In other words, if you say settled, meaning there is no movement, they are not traveling. Sakina is the same thing. They use this description to describe this no movement. It's settled. You can't say u, a, or e. There is exceptions we will cover in a minute. So ta'nith is feminizing. Ta'nith. So this ta, subject must agree with the verb. If the subject is feminine, the verb must take the feminine case. So if you say katab, just by saying katab, which means write, it indicates third person singular masculine. If you want to say she wrote, you say katabat here. So you have to add this ta to it. This ta, it turns the verb into a feminine verb for a she did, or for a plural woman, or a group, a feminine, a name for a group is feminine, so it's a ta, takes this ta. So this ta is will only attach to a past tense verb. So in this text, it's a beginner text, he gave you examples of marks that attaches to nouns and now attaches to verbs. And since verbs either past or present or indicate the present or the future, and he gave you samples of marks that attach to them. So we use these three now. When you advance in your studies, you'll learn more. So this ta'nith, this is the one he chose to mention. There is another one that only also attaches to past tense. We will cover in a minute, just in brief, not too deep. We only care about what's in this text now. So this is what we are talking about today. This تاء التأنيث الساكنة. This is a mark for the verb, and specifically to the past tense verb. This last statement here is about letters, like men, ila. They're called meaning letters. This men means from, ila means to. Their mark is, if none of the marks for a name or a noun and the marks for a verb attached to it, then that's its mark. That it will not take the marks over a noun or a verb. So that's how you distinguish a meaning letter. So it says here والحرف ما لا يصلح معه دليل الاسم ولا دليل الفعل. This is dalil evidence, and dalil evidence of the verb, evidence for the noun. If it does not work with it, then it's a meaning letter. So now we'll take an example. We get a deeper explanation of this ta, feminizing ta, that attaches to the past tense verb only. So in here, in the previous page in this text, he discussed the marks that only attaches to past tense. So he says there is two. This one here, the first, al-ula, تاء الفاعل. There is another ta that indicates the subject, someone who is doing the act. The difference between this one and this one, this ta attaches to make the verb a feminine verb. But this ta here indicates the subject. So you have this here ta, and here it says to the speaker, al-mukhatab, addressee, or the one you address or you speak to, al-mukhatab. Al-mukhataba, the same thing, the one you speak to, only if it's feminine, singular feminine. This ta. For now, just know there is a ta that only attaches to the past tense verb. If it's to, that means it's a speaker. So I wrote كتبت. You see the O here, that's كتبت for the speaker, متكلم, I. Ta with an opening, a fatha, ta, كتبت. That's to the second person, singular masculine. So if you're talking to a boy or a man, one boy or a man, you say كتبت, you wrote, كتبت. If it's a woman, you say كتبتي, singular. So they call this the moving ta. They call this the silent or non-moving ta, or the silent ta. This here says asalatan, mean it's originally silent. So that's the difference between this ta and this ta. If there is movement on it, and you will hear the movement, so you say كتبت, I wrote, كتبت, you wrote, كتبتي, you wrote, for a feminine singular, second person. In here, this attaches to the verb withot indicating the subject. So it just feminizes the verb, so it's silent. You see here, it's not obvious, but this is here as a circle. Let me make it more obvious. This نالت, you see it, there is no u, a, or e. نالت سعاد. سعاد is a feminine name, but there is no indication on it. It's just known as it's a name for a girl, سعاد. جائزة. Here, this is another ta feminizing that attaches to nouns. We will cover this in a different video, but for now we just look for marks that distinguish verbs. So this نالت here is an example. نالت سعاد جائزة. She gained a prize. سعاد gained a prize, or she won a prize. نالت. نالت, to gain. For more specifics about this ta, ولا يضر تحريكها لعارض. Sometimes it will be moved. عارض means temporarily passing by. عرض له means happened out of the ordinary. It doesn't happen all the time. It just sometimes it happens. And this can cause this ta to move because of there is another main law that supersedes any other law with these movements. In Arabic, no two silent letters will meet. So you have ta, this ta is silent, so there is no movement to it. This L that we discussed is a definite article. The L in it is also silent. This definite article, I don't want to get too deep into the grammar, but for now, this alif is called hamza mawsula. So if it's within the word, it's not pronounced. It's just there to know it's a definite article. So it will be joined with the one before it. In that case, the main law says there is no two unmoving letters will meet in the Arabic language. One has to move. So you will never see two silent letters. This here is Hamza that's not pronounced. Only if you start the word, like in here, you say الثانية الأولى You see, I say the on this alif. If it's within the sentence, it's not pronounced, this alif. That's why we don't have a Hamza on it. Anyway, so this here, the one of the cases you will see it broken. The reason I covered this, I didn't want to go too deep into it, is you will see it sometimes. And he gives an example here. قرأت, this is supposed to be silent, no movement. But because of this L here, at-tilmida, we talked about these sun letters and the moon letters, that sometimes you pronounce the L, sometimes you don't. But even if you don't pronounce it, there is that movement from this word to this word, and that silent letter will appear as if there is two silent letters here. So in this case, because of this main law, you have to move this ta. So, and it will take this kasra. So it will become qara'ti. قرأت قرأتي التلميذة قرأت التلميذة. So it's not too pronounced, just there is a slight movement in lowering. So قرأت التلميذة. So when you're reading a text with diacritics, you will see this. You say, okay, we're supposed to have no movement here, but I have it. Well, this is one of the exceptions. Another exception, that sometimes you will have an fatha on it if it's for the dual case. These are too much details now, but these are exceptions to the law. So if you see it moving and you understand it's not supposed to move, just know there are some exceptions. They're not that ubiquitous or used that often, but with these special cases, you might come across it. Well, this case, you could come across it more often than this one here, which indicates the dual case in the Arabic language. So that's just a brief discussions of this. We will cover these laws more, but for now, just know it's supposed to be calm or sakin or no movement, and only it's used only to feminize the verb and distinguish it from the pronoun ta, which is a moving ta. It's called the moving ta. You see, tu, ta, ti. So this is a distinguishing mark. We will just stop at that. I will not go any deeper in that. Here you have more discussions of this. So we will cover this more in the future. For now, just know that a past tense verb, we will have this non-moving ta with this mark on it. This indicates no movement. Now, there is another way to recognize verbs, and it's very useful, but this is too advanced, so I will just give you an idea of it, and you will know that there is a way that I can recognize verbs and different types of verbs. So this book here is designed for high school level grammar. It's called كتاب النحو الواضح في قواعد اللغة العربية. This نحو is a word used for grammar. For historical reasons, they use this word, which means direction or intention, and it indicates grammar, clear grammar. in the grammar of the Arabic language for high schools, according to the modern curriculum that was approved by the Ministry of Knowledge or Public Ministry of Knowledge. First volume for the first year of high school. You get 3 years, so this is for the first year. These are the authors: Ali Al-Jarim, Mustafa Amin. Rights are preserved, 1948. So these are, this is the publishing house, Dar al-Ma'arif بمصر. So you can download this from المجموعة العربية على الإنترنت, or Arabic collection online. So if you go there, you will find, just enter these words. You will have there's 3 volume books of it. You might have to try different entries into the search boxes and change the parameters to get these titles. They also have this transliteration, so this might help you. Notice Kitab al-Nahu al-Wadih. So if you enter these letters here, that might make it easier for you to search for it. You can also switch by Arabic and English. They have a prompt for that. So now this is the book that I will use as for some examples. These are the marks I wanted to cover briefly for a verb, or the ways a verb changes in Arabic. And here he gives you an example. Each one of these sentences contains a verb that is a form of a verb that a verb will take. So it says here مزيد الثلاثي. There is 2 roots for verbs in Arabic. A 3-letter verb that's in the past, كتب, كتب, and there is a 4-letter word like بعثر. This بعثر, he scattered. بعثر, 4 letters. بعثر. So most of the verbs are 3-letter root, and you get 4-letter roots. You can make changes to these and get different types of verb. So if you use the verb nam, which means he slept, this is intransitive. That means the person, that you have a subject and verb and subject. There is no object. So to make it transitive, there is some things you do, just like in he made someone sleep, you say in English. In Arabic, you add a letter to it, and it will make that effect. So in reality, what you will be able to do, you take a 3-letter verb, and you can produce 10 more verbs from it, with each one of them give you a different meaning. So this is the value of this distinction, or way of thinking about these verbs. There is a pattern for deriving more verbs from one verb. So here it says مزيد الثلاثي. So a thulathi is the origin. Mazid means what was added to it. So these here, first group, you have the 3 different verbs. Each one of them had 1 letter added to it. So you get 3. Now you have 3 more verbs that have different meanings. But their origin will indicate to you what the verb is about. Here you have 2 letters added to the same verb. But you have now 5 variations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Plus the 3, you get 8. And here, these last 2 I will not worry about because they're too rare. But you get these 2 here. 1, 2, so you get 10. You will find these 10 taught more in books. These here, just to let you know they exist, but they're not that much used in reality. Now, not all verbs will take all these 10. So the way the Arabs used to derive from one verb different verbs is covered by these 10 or 12 if you want, but 10 is the most of them, will cover most of the ways a verb can be. You can have another verbs from one verb. For بعثرة there is a different set, so this is only for a 3-letter root, that's why it's مزيد الثلاثي. So that's has less than these, they get 2, so that's easy, we'll cover later, but for now just we worry about the 3-letter root. And the way they use it is the word فعل. فعل, if you say what someone did, you say ماذا فعل, what did he do. So the word is, you can think of it as act. ماذا فعل, what act did he did, how did he act, or something. It has to do with action, فعل. They use this word to indicate the verb. So its verb is called فعل. So this 3-letter word is used to indicate verb, and also it's used as a template. So because of this is a verb. If you study how this changes and all these forms, you can use it as a template. So this here, فعل, if you line it up with كتب, let's say this is كتب, he wrote. If I line it up with فعل, notice I can match the F with the K, the here, the عين or the A with the T, and the L with the B. So instead of saying the first letter, the second letter, the fourth letter, you change it this way or that way. They will tell you the fa of the verb, the a or the ain of the verb, or the lam of the verb. Lam is the name of this letter L. Ain is the name of this letter A. And fa is the name of this letter fa. So whenever you discuss these verbs, they would say the fa of the verb, you will immediately know it's the first letter. The ain of the verb, it's the second letter, if you're talking about a 3-letter verb, which is usually the past tense. So فعل, you line them up like this. So if you know all these now how they change, I can say this here أفعل, I will show you the table how this word فعل changes. But if I say here أفعل, this will change. This is changed from the origin. So this is حسنة. That's the origin, حسنة. It became good, it was beautified. أحسن that's a variation for it. So if you weigh it with this one or use this template, it will be أفعل. You see, this is silent. This will always be the case. So if you can see now, if you learn these 10 ways that this word فعل will change, you can use it as a template. So you can look at any verb. You use the marks we learned so far. Like this ta here. Notice we talked about the ta. Now this is the case where this ta, it's supposed to have that silence mark, but it didn't because of this definite article there. كرمت الشعوب, this will be 2 silent letters meeting. In order to prevent that, this is the exception for this law, they break it. But now because you know this mark here, and you learned how to recognize this noun because of this definite article. And here we will learn more stuff about how pronouns are used when they're object, and how they go into nouns and not go into verbs and things like this. We'll learn more, but for now, you see, you recognize this. But now how you gonna learn what form this verb took? When you study these ways this word فعل changes, you can do this. Because of the stress here, I can say this is فعال. You see, there is this فعل will change into this by adding one more letter. The letter added here is not obvious because of the stress. This is actually 2 عين here. So this is supposed to be like this. Of course, you will never see it like this, because what they do is they put the stress, which means you stress this, you فعل, as if you have two of these. So فعل. So this is just an example. We cannot cover all of them together. This is like a table for how these change. You see, this is here, it says the scale. فعل is the scale. You use this as a scale, or you think of it as a template or a template. This here tells you what letters were added to the origin. So this فعل had an addition to it. This tells you what was added to it. Here is an example. Jealous, he sat. And that's how it would change with this. Another example, Akram, he honored or received received someone well. Akram. So now you have the three I talked about. When you add one letter, you get three variation on this word فعل. أفعل, فعل, فاعل. If you add two, you get these five here. تفعل, تفاعل, انفعل, افتعل, افعل. So if you recognize a verb by the marks that we just learned, and you want to know what's the original root of that verb, if the verb you're looking at has this with the A to it, and has this ta in it, and you use this as a template, you write this underneath it, and you find out which letters match with this fa, which letter line up with this sa and la, then you have the three-letter root of that verb. That's how useful this tool is. That's one of the ways to use it, especially the way I started this playlist, by indicating that we can have a code and enough information about the language that we can pick out nouns, definite, indefinite, verbs, past tense, present tense, future tense, just by learning some marks. And that's without even knowing all the letters or remembering all the letters. And this is one of the main tools. You see, you have 10 variations. If you add 3 letters to the verb, you get these 2 variations here. Notice they just included the 10 in here, and that's what I was talking about. Now, these letters that you add to the word فعل is joined in this mnemonic. سألتمونيها, you asked me for it, in a feminine case. So something feminine, you asked me for it. If you remember this سألتمونيها, or another word is اليوم. These will be connected in a regular text, but I'm breaking this for you to know. اليوم تنساه. That's another mnemonic. اليوم تنساه. اليوم means today. تنساه, you forget him. اليوم تنساه. So this here اليوم, which means today. تنساه, to forget him. You will forget him. You are forgetting him. This is the present tense. So if you break these letters down, these are the letters that you add to the word فعل to have these 10 variations of a verb. So we will cover this, as I said, more, but you have these mnemonics that help you remember what letters are added. So if you see any of these letters attached to a verb after you recognize it's a verb, this will help you distinguish which one of the 10 that verb is. And you can use the table I just showed you to try to find what is the root for that verb by aligning these letters with it. Find where the F's are, where the Ains are, where the L's are. Join them together and you get the 3-letter root. And you can use that later. If you know one 3-letter root, you can derive 10 verbs from it. And each one of them gives a different meaning that we will cover later. But this is a tool. You don't have to master it now, but this is an indication what is possible. You can learn these templates, and now you have the ability to recognize indefinite nouns, or most of them, and most of the definite nouns, and the verbs, a good number of verbs, because we still have different marks, present tense, past tense. So you have enough information. We will see now how much when we study a text with full diacritics. So this is an example. You can look up this. You can download this from this same site, Arabic Collection Online. Just go back, rewind the video to that point and check that address. As I said, you don't have to study these. This is here just an extra. This does not exist in the text we are studying. But I'm giving you a hint at what is possible if you learn these templates. You just learn how this word act or do is changed into different structures and derive 10 more verbs from it, and how you can use it to use it as a template for other verbs. That's of course for the 3-letter root, which is the most verbs are 3-letter root, have a 3. We have 4, but they're not as many as the 3-letter root. So now if we use what we learned so far to try and pick definite nouns in this text, indefinite nouns, and verbs, and try to use some of this template variation, or the variation on a verb. So if we use the first one mark we learned for nouns, which is this double marks, tanween, and this here is one, and this here is another one, this here is another one, tanween, this on here, on, in at the end here, and on, on, this is on here, in, on, 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 These here, I said you can have it like 2 double O's to give you the on sound, or you can have it like this. You have that bent at the end there. So we have here on, in, and, on, 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 in, on, and, in. So all these marks, just by learning this, what we just learned in the first video, all these are now indefinite nouns, or some of the proper nouns will take it. A proper noun like Zaydun, Muhammadun can take this tanween, but some of them do not, so just be aware of that. But most of these are indefinite nouns because of this tanween, this an, un, in. So by learning that, now you can look at this text, we say, okay, now I know each indefinite name in this text, or most of it, because some of them will lose that tanween if they're added. We discussed this in the video about lowering the nouns, but we don't have to worry about that. For now, we use the marks we know and by using it, using these, what we learned, we gain a lot more knowledge than we think we know already. So now we picked all these 10 wins. The second mark for nouns we learned is the definite article, al. So we will look for it here. I will use another color. So there is an al here. That's al. Notice this al here. This has this silence diacritic that indicates it's not moving. Al. This here is another al. This is when you have full diacritics. This sign here, it doesn't. This is different from this one. Just notice the difference between these. This will always be on an alif, an a here. This is to distinguish it from a regular a, which has a hamza on it, like this a. If it has this at the beginning with the l, and some nouns will have it without the l, and it's this you will not pronounce within the sentence. Only at the beginning of a sentence you use the sound, and that's what it's used for, to help us start, because you cannot start with the unmoving letters. You have to move the letters. So this is used for that. So this is another al, definite article. This is another al, definite article. This is another al, definite article. Another one here. Another one here. Another one here. Of course, I'm going fast because, well, I know the language, I studied it and all that, I speak it. But you can take your time. Doesn't have to be this fast. That's how you learn. When you take your time to do it, that's how you learn a lot more. When you struggle with it at least, and that's how information is instilled. So it provokes questions. Why this and why that? That's the process. It's important to go through. So this al here. This is another al here. It's not obvious here from the print. This is another al here. Another al here. Another al here. This here is within, so don't worry about not noticing such als like this, but this is within a sentence like this. But this is another al here. This here is another al. Another al. Another al. Another al. This is a dictionary, so most of these words, even people who speak Arabic, native speakers, will not know. That's why the dictionary exists. So it's a lot of these just explaining. That's why they use the full diacritics. That's why it's nice to have a book like this. It helps you in your pronunciation. This is another al here. Another al there. Al here. Another one here. Another one here. Another one there. Another one here. So I will not, so the side text I will leave it. We just do the main text here. It has most of the diacritics. So now all these yellow marks, they're all definite nouns. So that's just by knowing these two, how to distinguish a definite and indefinite nouns. Now you have a good idea about what the nature of each word in this text. So course, we learned another way that these definite, you might have another noun before it. So we will not cover that, but if you have another noun before it, you might have an indefinite noun that lost its tanween because it was attached to it. And we talked about the of thing, book of something. That's how it's called addition, adding two nouns to specify or define a noun. So we will leave that, but for now we got most of the indefinite noun, we got definite nouns, most of them. So now if we look for verbs from the marks we learned, as I said, some marks they're not used that much, so we don't have to look for them. But we learned about those meaning letters from to, so we can pick those, and these will help us narrow our search, because we know these lowering letters, men, from, to, ila, on, these are only attached to nouns. So if we recognize them, we narrow our search. Now it becomes easier to look for verbs. So if you're not did not study those letters, which you don't have to, because we still need to cover those lowering letters. They have their own section. So I will point some of them, even if you don't know what they are, it's okay. But the obvious ones you will recognize. So I will use another color for these. So these are now the lowering letters. This L here. This L here, but its effect on this pronoun is not obvious. It has to do with the grammar laws I will not go into now. This ka here, but also does not this effect here because of these pronouns and these different meaning letters. It does not have that lowering effect for now. So, but we can recognize it's there. This one is obvious, it's separate. This is from. You see its effect on the noun after it. It broke it, lowered it here and there. From, men. This fi, in. This ba here also cause lowering. It's lowered there, so this ba here is a lowering letter. Again, anything within a text like this, don't worry about not recognizing. This will come with time. Fi, in, fi. You see, some letters are more used more than others. This men here, from men. So now you can look at this men, you know there after it, what comes after it is a noun. So that's more nouns now you can recognize. So now we can, every time you see this blue color, you recognize it's one of those lowering letters. The noun after it's supposed to have it. Of course, there is some exceptions why the movement show or does not, but at least you know what, okay, I know there is a noun after this L. I know there is a noun after this. Another clue is this definite article. So now you took out more words that you know what they are. So you can look at this, you say, this is from something, a noun. This is a noun. So this is for lowering letters. Now if we start looking for verbs, we learned about qad and seen and sawfa. As I said, they're not that prevalent. So if we get to this qad here now, we know that this here is a verb because of this qad. You see, when a minute you see qad, this here is a verb. Now this, I talked about this ta, that subject for this video now. You see, because of this condition, it took this lowering. That's why we can't see it like this. So this is the problem with it. But here, you see it's obvious. This here is the same word. أمرعت ومروعت. This is a variation on the same root. But here you see, because it's used an example, there is no unmoving letter after it. It kept that non-movement. So this is one of the marks we learned so far from past tense. So now, by this, I know this is a past tense. In here, now, of course, if you don't remember it now, it's okay, but this is an extra information. Okay, this is a definite article. Before it here, there's a ta that is broken. So this is a good clue that this could be a past tense verb. You use other clues to reach that conclusion. So this here, a verb. But now I start to, what are these that I cannot mark now because I don't have any marks to help me recognize it. Now I can look at it as this. Okay, this could be a verb. This where the template I talked about comes in. So if I put this word فعل that I used, I say, okay, this is a 3-letter word. It could be a past tense verb. Let's see, if I put this word, this fa lines up with this a find with this a or alif, and this l with this l. So you can look up in the dictionary, you will find out it's a verb. It means said, قال. In here, if you use another variation from that template, you can use أفعل. So for now, let's leave that. But this is an example how we use that template. So now we have here, because of this is a dictionary, it's limited on the verbs it's using. It's explaining meaning. So here, okay, we talked about the present tense letters. Now we recognized so many nouns and verbs. Now you narrowed your search. Now you can look. You will learn this is a letter. It means which. This is a letter. It's a negating letter. When you learn these, now you'll get more out of this text. You can rule out that these are not verbs. These are meaning letters. So by the time you learn more marks, you can easily recognize the verbs, and by using that template, you can easily find out what 3-letter root or 4-letter root that verb is. So if I use the 4 present tense letters, I see a ya at the beginning of this word. We said it's anaitu. If we go back to, it's anaitu. That's the mnemonic. Anaitu. Anaitu. Any one of these letters here will attach. It's like ing in English. It attaches to a word and indicates it's a continuous present tense. But these go on the beginning of a word. So I'm looking here. I know this is a noun. I know this here is a noun. When you learn pronouns, separate pronouns, you will learn that this is a pronoun. So I have nouns here. I have articles. So where is the verb? I look at here. I see, okay, this is a good candidate for a verb. And I see a ya here. So that's another clue I'm using. This ya here is one of those letters. So يقال. So this, I'm looking at a present tense verb. So that's how we recognize this. So that's one of the marks. As I said, it's not used as a mark for verb because some past tense verbs will have one of these letters. But it's a good chance you are looking. After you rule out, you take all these out, it becomes a lot more easier for you. What's left? You have a sentence, and I took all the nouns and the articles and the pronouns when you learn them. Now you're left with good chance you are looking at the verb. By learning these letters, you know a present tense can only have one of these at the beginning. So that's you're looking at, you know it's a verb and you know it's a present tense verb. If it did not have it, it's a good chance you're looking at a past tense verb. if it has this ta for the subject for this today, you know, okay, it's a feminine text, so this gives you a clue about these names that comes after it, or the pronoun. So that's how you use this information. Now you're able to do, at least for the nouns, you pick all the indefinite, the lowering letters from, to, on, at, and you have marks for most of the, or at least a good number of the verbs, past tense and present tense. So here there's another verb. It starts with the ya there. That's a present tense verb. And this here is a present tense verb, يقال. This here is used you instead of ya if you're indicating the subject is not known. So it was said, it is said. You're not saying who's saying, you're saying it is said. That's how the equivalent of this in English, it is said. So this is a present tense because of this mark. No, I know. This is another present tense with the ta. This ta. You see, anaitu. We said anaitu. Yeah, we found few verbs with this yeah. This ta at the beginning indicates a present tense verb. تقول. يقال. So because of this, this is a dictionary. You say, notice he's saying يقال. It is said. They say. They said. It is said. It's this verb is used so much because it is a dictionary and telling you how they used to say it. This here, the moving ta I talked about, because we did not cover it in detail, but this is a pronoun we will cover later. But this is a good indication when you learn it that this is a past tense, because this moving ta at the end of a word, over a verb, can only attach to a past tense verb. So I think this is enough for now. I think you can see from this discussion of this text how much you already know. Now with a dictionary, you can have a good idea about what the text is saying. Of course, this is a difficult text. It's discussing words that are not used now. But it's a good example how to use a text. Of course, a lot of them you will understand what they are. And it's a good example of diacritics text. Now, if you learn these diacritics, we will cover that. Maybe in the next video I will cover how each letter have 3 diacritics that go to it. So you only have to learn 3. And each letter will take one of them, except with one exception, or this alif, this a. It does not take any movement on it. This a, the sound a, not the this will take it. So we will finish with the Charles Dickens text. I'll just read quick through it. دعي ديكنز في سنة 1842 لزيارة الولايات المتحدة وكندا، فلبى الدعوة ونزل ضيفا مكرما على الشعب الأمريكي، وقدرت مؤلفاته التقدير كله، وربح كثيرا من المال، بيد أنه كان ينفق أكثر مما يربح. وبعد أن كانت حياته الزوجية سعيدة تغيرت تلك الحياة، وانقلبت إلى عناء وشقاء ففارق زوجه سنة 1858 ميلادية. تعب ديكنز كثيرا في حياته، وأجهد نفسه في تأليفه وتمثيله ومحاضراته حبا لإرضاء الشعب، وثابر على عمله حتى وافاه القدر المحتوم في 9 يونيو سنة 1870 ميلادية، وهو في 58 من عمره، بعد أن سطر اسمه في سجل الخلود. فحزنت إنجلترا لوفاته حزنها على شكسبير، وقد أودع جثمانه مع العظماء وقادة الرأي والعمل في Westminster Abbey. Okay, if we translate this text. دعي ديكنز في سنة 1842. He was invited, Dickens, in the year 1842 لزيارة الولايات المتحدة وكندا, to visit the United States and Canada. فلبى الدعوة, and he accepted the invitation. ونزل ضيفا مكرما على الشعب الأمريكي, and he was received with honor by the American people. In here I'm not going literal with the words, because if you go literal it's different, but it means he was an honored guest on the American people. So I just gave the meaning of the sentence. وقدرت مؤلفاته التقدير كله. His books or articles, they were appreciated, all the appreciation. And وربح كثيرا من المال, and he gained a lot of money, but he used to spend more than he gained. بيد أنه كان ينفق أكثر مما يربح. وبعد أن كانت حياته الزوجية. This بيد here, if I go back to this, بيد أنه, this is not used that much, so you might not see it too much used, but it means but in this context, that even though he gained too much money, he used to spend more than he gained. وبعد أن كانت حياته الزوجية سعيدة, after his married life was happy, that life changed. تغيرت تلك الحياة. You see this ta here with this non-movement on it, by indicating that. Just by looking at this, you see you got 2 marks. This is a 4-letter root, and this is a feminizing ta on it. So this is a good example there. وانقلبت, another ta here. This is a past tense. انقلبت. This is a feminizing ta that we just discussed. إلى عناء وشقاء, ففارق زوجه سنة 1858. And his life changed, and it turned into hardship and struggle. So he separated from his wife in the year 1858. تعب ديكنز كثيرا في حياته وأجهد نفسه في تأليفه وتمثيله ومحاضرته. He put a lot of effort, and he got tired a lot in his life, and he exhausted himself in authoring and acting and lecturing in order to please the people. حبا, because he loved. That's what حبا is, description, an adjective of why he did this, to please the people, because he loved it. He loved to please the people. وثابر على عمله حتى وفاه القدر المحتوم في 9 من يونيو سنة 1870. And he continued his hard work until the inevitable destiny caught up with him in the 9th of June, the year 1870. And وهو في 58 من عمره, and while he was 58 years old. بعد أن سطر اسمه في سجل الخلود, after he wrote his name in the record or register of eternity or immortality. فحزنت إنجلترا لوفاته حزنها على شكسبير. So England felt sad, just like they felt sad at the death of Shakespeare. وقد أودع جثمانه مع العظماء وقادة الرأي والعمل في Westminster Abbey. His body was buried with the great ones and leaders of opinion and work in Westminster Abbey. Thank you for listening. Next time, inshallah, we start with the grammar, and we discuss what causes the movement at the end of subjects, objects, and present tense verbs. These are what the grammar covers, are these movements. So we start with that, and we go from there. Thank you for listening. See you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.